1, 2, 3, 4.
Where arts and culture summits the airwaves, this is the Nine Rails Arts Podcast. I'm Todd Oberndorfer, and I'm joined by my producer and podcaster in crime, R. Brandon Long. We are the Banyan Collective, arts and adventure podcasting since 2010.
Eastbound and down, loaded up and trucking, but we gonna do what they say can be done. We got a long way to go, and it's short time to get there. Hey, I'm eastbound, just watch old bandit run.
This episode includes a conversation with the design team from the new Nine Rails Arts Plaza. We're joined by representatives from Sasaki, Union Creative Agency, Landarch and Ogden City. We are already recording. We did kind of a little test episode. This is our first Zoom Nine Rails podcast, and if this goes well, and I assume that it will, then I plan on doing more of these. And so the fact that essentially now every Zoom meeting is a potential podcast, and so I guess might as well start joining people for that. So this is going to be, I believe, episode 24 of the Nine Rails Arts Podcast. This will be a reintroduction after about 8 months of being away. So thank you so much for finding the time for today. Because we have such an amazing group today, I am going to do some introductions, which I don't always do. And so we're going to start with Ogden City. Lori Buckley is here with us, and Sarah Mace. Sarah, is it Mace or Meese? I've never asked you officially.
It's Mace. Mace, like
Mace.
Gray.
Meese.
Mace.
Okay, Mace. Okay, M-A. Yeah. So I have heard, and I have misspelled or probably mispronounced your name for years. And so Mace. So Sarah, it's good to see you. Lori, it's good to see you. Lori Buckley is the arts coordinator with Ogden City Arts. She works closely with the Ogden City Arts Advisory Committee. And there might be a few members of your committee here with us today. Who do I see here? That's Jake and myself and Cam.
4.
And who's the other one?
Brandon.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, Todd. Yeah.
Brandon pops in and out. He was chair,
I haven't logged in since COVID, so yeah.
Brandon, it's good to see you as well. I forgot you're even in that corner. So
I'll be over here producing if you need me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you can be quiet now. So we're good.
Done.
And so being involved with the Ogden City Arts Advisory Committee, you help produce events such as Ogden's First Friday Art Stroll and the Mayor Awards for the Arts. The Ogden City Arts Advisory Committee is responsible for Ogden City Arts grants, public art installations, and many other arts-related programming, of which you have kept us very, very busy with public art programming, which we can talk about on another show. Sarah Mace is also with us today. She is Ogden City Business Development Division Manager and Project Manager. Sarah oversees the division's strategy for supporting business and economic growth. She leads the division's business retention and expansion program, supports a variety of downtown revitalization projects, including, of course, the Nine Rails Creative District, of which we have chatted with you a few times. We are also joined by Sasaki. Sasaki is an interdisciplinary design firm practicing. You all have such amazing mission statements, so I'm using them. So you practice architecture, interior design, planning and urban design, space planning, landscape architecture, ecology, civil engineering, oh my lands, and place branding. The firm is headquartered in Boston, but practices as at an international scale. Second office in Shanghai and a third office in Denver. And we'll talk about Denver in just a second. Hello, Boston. Hello, Denver. Sasaki is known for a uniquely collaborative design process that yields integrated contextual designs. And representing Sasaki today is Anna Kors. And Anna, I always call you Anna. Is it Kors?
It's Anna Kors. Yeah, that's great.
Oh, perfect. Okay, I nailed it. Anna Kors is
what's that?
What's that?
It's the first time ever, so nice job.
Perfect. Anna is a landscape architect with Sasaki and the Senior Associate Director of the new Denver office, which is where you are now.
Correct. Yep, I'm in Denver.
Nice. Excellent. Ashley, is it Peltier?
That's great.
Okay, it's close enough. I like that.
Yeah.
Is an associate landscape architect with Sasaki and is Anna's partner in crime. Is that safe to say?
Definitely.
Okay, perfect. And so we are moving forward. This is going to be about a fourth of the show now. My lands, we have so many amazing people, is Union Creative. Union Creative is a stakeholder-centered design agency that infuses creativity, strategy, and the culture into organizations and communities. They represent meaningful, innovative, and exciting solutions by collaborating with clients, partnering organizations, and stakeholders to create meaningful projects designed for impact. Union Creative is based in Ogden, representing, there's a little clapping right there. Representing Union Creative is the founder of Union Creative, Jake McIntyre, who is a designer, social catalyst, and arts advocate. Hello, Jake. Thanks for joining us today. Also with Union Creative, particularly on this project, is Cam McLeod. Hello, Cam. Cam is a visual storyteller and photographer whose work reflects mountain culture, action sports, and adventurous lifestyles. He's worked with brands such as Columbia. I'm going to do a little name dropping, even if you don't often. Helly Hansen, Marmot, and Solomon. You've been featured in Outside Magazine and Ski Magazine, and your work has graced the covers of Powder Magazine and Backpacker Magazine. Also representing Union Creative to some small degree is myself, who just tags along on everyone else's coattails. And so we'll just leave it at that. And then also, and unexpectedly and happily, is Matt Kilbrew, who is also joining us. Matt, you are a student at Weber State, a student of design, and you are interning with Union Creative for the time being. Is it a project-based internship? Is it for a year, or is it until he makes you go away?
He's no longer an internship. He hired me.
Shut up. It's official.
I don't talk anymore.
So you're allowed to talk now.
I'm allowed to talk now. Yeah. I've got a title and everything. No longer intern.
Are you allowed to look Jake in the eye yet, or do you still have to look down when he comes
Down.
into your room?
Down.
Yeah,
Down.
you still have to
We're
look
getting
down.
there.
I think that is an excellent start. And last but not least is IO Land Architecture. It goes, is it Landarch? Is that what your
Landarch,
full-time?
yeah.
Landarch, I love it.
Landarch.
Which is, of course, short for landscape architecture. You also specialize in urban design studio, specializing in community revitalization through historic preservation, creative placemaking, and outdoor recreation. It seems like you set up a nice shop in Ogden for that. Their work is focused on the continuation of regional narrative, weaving history, ecology, culture, and meaning together for projects that involve from and advance the spirit of the Intermountain West. And joining us with IO Landarch is Chile Larsen, the principal founding landscape architect. Her unique design and planning perspective integrates a deep appreciation for indigenous landscapes and the vernacular of the West. Nicely done,
Thank you.
everybody. I see a lot of things that cross over. So and that's all we have time for. It's nice meeting everybody. I think our follow-up episode will actually talk about the Arts Plaza. Okay, so we are going to move into things. I'm kind of going to start from the beginning, and we'll kind of work from there. I feel like part of us, if we haven't already, we should be pouring out a 40-ounce on the grounds of the Courtyard Inn Motel. But I think that pouring out the 40 is usually a sign of reverence, and that place was super sketchy. And
Maybe
so,
it's a sign of good riddance.
Yeah, it kind of is. Although I did learn some street smarts. I learned some street smarts from that corner. Just I think the things that I saw in that corner. So, so after a series of events, Ogden City bought the motel for a little less than $1 million in 2017, and did a very extreme home makeover. Another $500,000, and a few years later, the motel is now demolished. The lot is now stabilized and secure, and it is ready. It's getting all dressed up and ready to go to the ball. And so this first question's directed, of course, to Sarah and Lori, but anyone else can pipe in, of course. Was the city always imagining an arts and culture centerpiece connecting downtown Ogden with the East Central neighborhood? And so when all this happened, I know that many years has passed between the purchase and where we're at now. And so we can start with you, Sarah, if you'd like to catch us up just a little bit.
Yeah, so I think the idea of using the arts to create a corridor that connects all the way from Union Station up into the East Central neighborhood is something that's been around for a long time, since well before Lori or I even started at the city. And we began to revisit that idea, I think it was in 2015, looking at how we could use creative placemaking in the arts to create a stronger and more vibrant connection between downtown and East Central. So we wrote a grant application to the NEA, the National Endowment for the Arts, under their Our Town program. And we got some initial funding that allowed us to kind of flesh out that vision and do some planning for what we originally thought was a creative corridor has now expanded to become a creative district, what that would look like, and how we could use that to bring more art out into the public realm, make that part of the community's everyday experience, and create an environment where creatives and other artists want to live and work.
Yeah, and to expand a little bit on what Sarah said, the catalyst kind of that she spoke of in 2015 was the beginning of the creation of the Arts Master Plan. And in the process of making that was a 2-year process of many, Jake McIntyre actually helped the city, and he was the main driver behind most of the public input sessions with the community, collecting what kind of needs and wants the community was looking for. And part of our research and data collection brought us to the fact that we needed to create an environment where artists can thrive and make a living. And so then became one of the goals or strategies and objectives of that plan was the creation of a creative district.
I love it. Jake, did we miss any steps?
About right. I think that this idea of being able to use arts and culture as a bridge between, historic 25th Street and East Central Ogden, both of which have vibrant spaces, but really thinking about how do we form a bridge between them that feels equally vibrant. That was kind of the main nexus of where we're going.
I love it. Now, knowing that Ogden can be ambitious, we can do a lot of studies, and we can start a lot of projects. What was it about this particular project that made it a priority? Because this was definitely one of those projects that started slow and gained speed and then just went crazy, right? And so what was it that made this a priority for the city?
I'll answer part of it, and I think Sarah needs to chime in on this, but the main part, like I mentioned before, was we actually adopted that Arts Master Plan in 2017. And one of the goals actually called out that the creative district be, created. So then Sarah jumped off on that task of doing a master plan for a creative district. And in the process of doing activation events and as part of her NEA grant, it kind of came to light that we needed a programmable space for the public to gather. And it was really serendipitous that the courtyard was acquired by the city, and it gave us a space to jump off on this, venture.
I love it. Sarah?
Yeah, and I think from the economic development perspective, the city has really understood the opportunity that creative placemaking creates. So I've had the question before, like, oh, you work in business development. What are you doing working on this arts project? Which is a fair question. But one, it's really fun. But second, and more importantly, is the fact that the arts can really be a catalyst to create the type of environment here in our community where people want to live and grow businesses and pursue their creative endeavors. That's really important to the growth and the success of the community. And I think Ogden's story that's more often told is how Ogden's reinvented itself around the outdoor industry, and just the access to incredible outdoor recreation that we have here. And that is certainly true. And I think we see the creative sectors as another opportunity, another catalyst like that, where we can really use that to kind of define our identity as a community. It's already a huge part of the community's identity here, which I didn't realize before I started working on this project. And just looking at how we can use that as a catalyst for economic growth here in the community.
I love it. Okay, so the Arts Plaza became a priority. The first steps on that to kind of fill everybody in is it was decided to, what were the original steps? Chile, when were you brought in to originally envision that plaza?
So Jake, jog my memory. Was it 2015 or 2016 that we did some a very preliminary kind of conceptual design for the plaza? But that actually predated the whole Nine Rails Creative District master plan even. Like I think very early on, shortly after the city acquired, or when they were in the process of acquiring the motel, at that point, Brandon with the city asked us to take a look at what could we do with this space if we tore the motel down. So it wasn't, part of it, was a design for the plaza, but part of it was just trying to visualize how cool and vibrant a space that could become without a motel there, which I think is what really got the ball rolling and got people kind of excited about the possibilities that space presented.
And so how important was it for those next steps to present that visual? And so this is kind of a question a little bit for anybody, if you're interested, is the fact that some of us are able to envision things better than others, right? And so with what you're able to provide, and this applies definitely to Ashley and Anna as well, when you can give those visuals early on in the process, how much easier does that make the next step?
Yeah. Well, so part of the challenge with this, I think part of the challenge with Ogden in general is that we have a surplus of vacant lots. So anytime you start talking about, okay, we're going to tear down this building, clearly this building needed to be torn down. Clearly there are other certain buildings in our community that need to be torn down. I think there's an initial resistance to people just because they don't want any more holes or gaps in the community. But yeah, definitely, a picture is worth 1,000 words. That sounds trite, but it's so true because, once you paint that vision of, not just what the space is going to look like, but more about the spirit of that place and the energy of that place. I think that's what really got people kind of jazzed about the idea.
And if we can kind of push this just a little bit further, and actually, and if you have any thoughts, as far as really being able to take it to that next level, right? And I'm really interested in that as far as pushing that vision to either investors or the city or other partners. And so give me some examples on how that's worked for you, what you've learned as far as the importance of those steps.
Is that a question for me or for...
anybody that might be interested. Ashley, what are your thoughts on that?
I think actually Anna would be good to jump in on this. Sorry.
Oh, perfect.
I'm going to go back to your, original question about using visuals to really communicate an idea. As designers, we are visual people. So I would say creating that visual graphic is something that really helps us first to understand what we're doing. And it's always this constant back and forth between the big idea, the big picture, down to the little details. And once we can kind of get that concept, the big idea sort of grounded, it's so important to then take that out and show a graphic and be able to communicate that to the community. And it's the easiest way to kind of get feedback, to get initial reactions, is when they can imagine themselves in that space. And by having kind of that vision, again, with the community and sort of building on that, and the feedback we get from them, it is easier to kind of build this momentum and really take it out to future donors, to take it out to other entities that really need to get buy-off on the project. So again, I think it starts for us at the very beginning. I think the initial sketch that we do, we're always kind of thinking in 3D, we're thinking graphically, and then trying to take that back out to the community.
I love it. And so Sarah and Lori, either one of you, and so once Chile gave some of those initial thoughts, those initial visuals, what was, and of course Jake as well, yeah. What was the next step? How'd we get a little bit closer to where we're at now?
Well, I think, I really think the next step was when Brendan had pretty much made it okay that this became part of the creative district as an arts plaza, or a plaza of sorts, a community gathering space. And the next step was I took it from there and created what we use to bring to City Council to ask for funds for public art funds. We asked for public art money to create a design. And this is where Sasaki came in. We wrote an RFQ and put it out into the universe to look for a good designer to come and help us create this picture that's, telling the story of what this plaza would become. So we took it to City Council and got that approved to use public art funds to pay Sasaki to bring this, help us make this dream come true.
If I could rewind a little bit too, just a little bit more of the background there. Mm-hmm. Between when Jake and I did kind of the initial conceptual stuff, and then when our whole team led by Sasaki initiated this project, there was this whole, I think, a very important in-between step of creating the master plan for the whole Nine Rails district, yes. Which was, the community involvement in that process was just amazing. Probably one of the best projects that I've ever worked on in terms of just the energy of the community behind that and how everyone really rallied around the creative district. And I truly believe that it's the feedback and the participation and the energy from the community that really drove this plaza as being the flagship project. So I definitely don't, I don't feel like there was this huge top-down push where it was like the city saying, this has to be the project. It was like the community. And I remember we had a meeting, gosh, was it last winter? I can't remember. And you guys presented a couple of different options to the whole Nine Rails steering committee, or the whole Nine Rails organization, and basically said, what do you guys want to see? And it seemed like the consensus was really to move forward. So just kudos to the city on an amazing public participation process through this.
It gives me chills. It really does. It has been one of those projects, and it's been one of those projects where I at some point integrated myself into this. Now, this has been many, many years ago, just because of my own excitement, and going to an open house wasn't enough. And so that really started my whole journey into this whole program. And so, okay, so you put out a request. A winning team was selected. The team consisted of, I'll let you take it from there, Lori.
Well, part of the request, and this was a big key component, was some of our feedback was that we do these large RFQs, and locals don't usually have the chance because they don't have the experience. And so Sarah actually tweaked the RFQ to require the design firms that were applying to get this commission that they work with a local design firm and some of the locals. And so every design firm that, it was kind of a feeding frenzy that when all the design firms that were applying actually reached out into the Ogden community to get team members to join on as part of their submission or application. And so that's kind of how Chile and Union Creative and Jake McIntyre came on board with Sasaki. And so we reviewed, and we got a lot of good submissions, and went through the review process, and ended up with Sasaki and Jake and Chile, and we're super happy with our decision. And Sarah, did you want to jump in and add anything on that if I'm missing anything?
No, maybe just I would add it was some really, I think, really great feedback we got through the Nine Rails District Association as we started talking about moving this project, the plaza, into implementation and how we were going to proceed with selecting a design firm, it was really feedback that we heard from our district members that drove us to include that emphasis on working with local partners. And I think the feedback was like, hey, part of developing a creative district is continuing to build the creative capacity that already exists here. And part of that is making sure that local artists and local design firms have the opportunity to work on some larger scale projects, especially as they move from concept into construction. And so I would just say we really value the feedback that we got in some of those discussions with the district association that kind of shaped our approach to the RFQ process. And it's making for better design too.
Yes.
Anna, with all your experience working nationally, internationally, how important is that local connection, and how common is that local connection when you're doing projects?
I was just going to say it's been an amazing process working with Chile and Jake and their teams. And it is absolutely important. You know, we're coming in to a community and we want to provide ideas that really resonate with a community that makes sense in an environment. And we have to have those people that, you know, live and breathe that area every day. And, you know, Chile and Jake do that. And they are constantly, you know, going back and forth with us saying, hey, this is great, but what if you tweaked your design a little bit this way? And really, their ideas are embedded into the design. And we do that on all of our projects. And it's not just bringing on, you know, a local just as kind of a sort of a firm that's, you know, needs to be represented there. It's really part of our design process and they're part of our team. And so we couldn't have been more fortunate and lucky to really work with Jake and Chile on this.
You chose a good kickball team, like when everybody's sort of choosing teams and things, it worked out really well.
You know, I feel like we got first pick.
Well,
you know what? I'm going to agree, yeah.
Yeah, and likewise, we've just so enjoyed working with you all, and I think the proof is in the results. I mean, it's been a great collaboration, and I think that the design is turning out so good. I'm so excited.
Perfect transition. Thank you so much, Chile, for that. We're going to talk about Sasaki's namesake, Hideo Sasaki. Graduated from Harvard's Graduate School of Design in 1948, which at that time, and this is a nice little kick-ass fact, was under the direction of Walter Gropius, which some of you might know as the founder of Bauhaus in Weimar, Germany, which when I ran across that was it. I completely geeked out. I'm a big fan of the Bauhaus. And so that connection, I'm probably never going to leave you guys alone now. I'm just somehow going to always be involved. Now, Hideo was interested in the interaction of land, buildings, and the greater environment. Now, this is 60 years later. How does Hideo Sasaki's notion of oasis, and I love that word oasis, which we all know is that sort of fertile spot in the desert where water is found, which describes Utah very, very well. And that landscapes can restore the human spirit, inspire your process. And so that's kind of where we're going to start with Sasaki's involvement coming in and your background as well.
Yeah, I mean, that whole concept is really what drew me to Sasaki. I mean, I have to say a little bit of my personal background. My father worked for the U.S. Forest Service, and so I grew up outside of national forests in Wyoming and Montana and Colorado my whole life. So big nature was my backyard. And then I became obsessed with cities in undergrad and realized that landscape architecture is really this intersection between cities and the environment. And that's exactly what Hideo was talking about. He's talking about bringing nature into cities, no matter the context, no matter the size. It's really about bringing this restorative environment and creating opportunities for people to connect to nature in our cities. And, you know, fast forward today, there's been so many studies about the benefits of nature in our cities, whether it's Charles Montgomery talking about the happy city and really bringing environment into our cities, or Stephen Kaplan talking about restorative environments. There's all these mental and social and health benefits of having these beautiful spaces of environments in our cities. And so I think that sort of base of Sasaki and using that as, you know, this connection between land and buildings and the greater environment is really what drives, I think, the design for all of us. And it's really what inspires us every day. And it's how we work as an interdisciplinary firm, really, again, trying to bring those benefits, trying to bring that restorative environment into our landscapes. So that big idea and bringing that to the plaza here in Ogden is exactly what we wanted to do. And I would love to, I could talk about this forever, but I'd love to hand it over to Ashley to really, get into some more details.
Yeah, I think the notion of public open space as being an oasis is as important as ever. I mean, in this time of COVID, we're seeing it's critically important to have a safe space for folks to gather, either to socialize or to protest, just having a range experience together in a safe space. So in that quote, Hideo is also talking about the love and care that goes into the work in creating these spaces. And I think that's extremely important, especially in a process like this. Each project that we come to as a custom approach. Each project is custom, responding to a new set of community needs and environmental needs. So if we don't put that love and care into creating these spaces, they're not going to be successful. They're not going to be that public oasis.
I think, Ashley mentioned COVID and it's really shown the importance of our public spaces now more than ever in cities and towns. Public spaces are where you go to, exercise. It's where you go to work. It's where you go to connect with people that you haven't been able to talk to for weeks on end. So we need now more than ever to really be investing in those public spaces, which is exactly what's happening in Ogden right now.
And, I must, because we have such an incredible group right now, I would love to take that just a little bit further and introduce, sort of Chile's and Jake's opinion on that as well. Because landscape architecture is such a fascinating field. It really is. And for somebody like myself who more than anything appreciates it, right? What are your thoughts? What got you interested, Jake, sort of in this area, or Chile? I know it's a basis for both of what you do. You're muted, Chile.
Sorry, are you
Perfect.
asking
we
what
can check
got
that
me?
off your list.
Yes, bingo. Are you asking what interested me in landscape architecture?
Yeah, what excited you?
In the first place.
Right.
I mean, the same thing. I grew up in a fairly rural or semi-rural part of Idaho, and my grandparents lived in. My grandpa was a rancher, and I just grew up just spending so much time outdoors and in these wild, beautiful places, and was immediately drawn to landscape architecture as a profession because it integrated my particular skill sets, my ability, my love of ecology and math and science and art. But once I got into it, I realized that designing really great, amazing urban spaces is what needs to happen to really preserve the really amazing natural spaces and the wild places. So if we have great, vibrant, dense, livable city centers, then people won't feel the need to sprawl out all over the landscape and all over our prime agricultural farmland. So it's like it seems like a conflict in your mind when you think of, I want to preserve nature and make nature awesome by creating really great urban centers. But they're just two sides of the same coin. It's a really symbiotic relationship there. And now more than ever, bringing actual ecology and bringing native vegetation and sustainability principles into urban centers is a whole, it's an amazing part of what we do now. And I love it. So.
Now, Jake, you're not a landscape architect yourself, but you have been working with Chile for a very, very long time. And so what drew you to Chile and what she did as early on as you did?
Yeah, so my works come at it from a little bit of a different angle. My background is in collaborative design. So the medium that I think of working in is collaboration and participation, engagement. And for me, that exists in urban public spaces or urban spaces in general. It's about thinking of how do we connect community? How do we create spaces where people feel welcome, people feel confident, comfortable to engage, a place that really builds culture. So that's the kind of lens I bring to this, is thinking about the human aspect and how do we create spaces for humans. And especially in Ogden, how do we create spaces that are different than anything else we have, and that can help solve some of the challenges and build upon the great strengths that we have. And what connected me to working with Chile is just as I began my journey of coming back to Ogden and wanting to get engaged in creative fields here, her and I got connected through some other projects. But I think what really has kept us working together is our interest in what Chile uses as grassroots design. And I think that resonates very much with me. I call it something different, but I think we're coming from the same concept of how do we help to build places from the bottom up. And I think there's a top-down value in that too, but really how do we build strong, vibrant places from the bottom up, giving as much voice to the community as possible so that we build places that actually reflect the people that live there.
Mm-hmm. Jake, that was a brilliant transition to my next comment. So as I said before, I am a super geek on the Bauhaus, and the biggest thing with them was that their method of learning and practice, it set aside that early design philosophy of working individually, right? So they brought about something new where you collaborated. And so I would love to honestly, yeah, Jake is drinking already. We could drink every time we say collaboration, right? As far as collaborating and working together. With the team that we have here today, what I want to do next is we can be as brief as or as long-winded as you want to. Let's talk about collaboration and the importance of collaboration, because that's honestly what brings together projects like this. I've just started. I'm halfway through my first semester. I decided to go back to grad school, and I'm doing a arts administration program. And so one of the things that I am completely drawn to, especially with the work that I've done, is the idea of collaboration. And so I would love to hear everybody's opinion on the importance of that. I want to shove that down the throat of every listener that we have and how important that is in the most positive way possible. Lori, let's start with you.
I have a quick comment on that. I have to say, without collaboration in a community, there would be so much less programming, so many less public offerings, and if there's strength in numbers. So when you bring people together, magical things can happen. And this plaza is a perfect example. If it were just left on the city's plate, we would be nowhere near where we are. Like Sarah and I would sit back and go, how are we going to program and activate the district? Like, we don't have money, we didn't have a space, and the only reason why this is happening is because, we have a private foundation that came forward to collaborate. Ogden Contemporary Arts has come forward to work with us. Weber State, Chile, Sasaki, Union Creative. So it took the power of many to create something so amazing. So, collaboration is the only way to go.
I love it. Who would like to jump in next?
Yeah, I'll chime in next. So I think
Perfect.
A lot of times when I hear the term collaboration, you think of kind of everyone coming together, being on the same page, sort of moving together forward in a very consistent way. But I also think collaboration is about bringing people together with different voices, different opinions, and not everyone agrees, right? And that's when it gets good. It's when you have those differing voices and those ideas and creating that creative friction that you really come out with a better design. Because if you come together and collaborate and everyone's on the exact same page, that means you missed something, that it's a diluted design. It's not as good as it could be. So I really love the idea of collaboration as being this moment where you're bringing all different voices together and really coming away with something that has a little bit of everyone's voice, but it's going to be better when there is that kind of that friction and then maybe disagreement at some point.
I love it. And speaking of creative friction, that is a perfect transition to Union Creative. I think that's in their byline right there. And so let's go to Cam. What are your thoughts? I think he represents our friction between the three of us, but I love everything you're saying. Every time Cam and Jake and I get on a call together, we don't want it to go smoothly entirely, right? We want to bring up those differing ideas. What are your thoughts, Cam?
I mean, I could just echo what Anna said. Really, I love the dissonance that happens, or like the collision when collaboration happens. And I do think that really elevates a product, whatever it is you're working on. And I think it's like it's not beneficial to assume that a creative process is a self-driven pursuit. I think oftentimes if we were left to that, it just the end product would not be nearly as interesting as it is when you invite others to participate and point out flaws or where you could make improvements. So I think it's a great point and something I look forward to, either on the receiving end or being able to just sort of provide that contrasting view or pushback.
Ashley, what do you think?
I mean, the best work comes out from collaboration, echoing what, Cam and Anna said. It's been kind of a joy, especially on this project, collaborating with this crew, getting on the phone with Chile and Jake and Anna and just kind of riffing off each other on Miro board, sketching together has been a blast. And as they all know, I get really excited when we come up with a good idea. And something, that's the beauty of, the firm Sasaki that we work with. We have so many people that we can easily pull into the process and have specialties of and know things that you have no idea or have little background about. And it makes things so much richer. And yeah, it's been a fantastic process.
And I would add to that the collaboration with the local community too, and Jake and obviously your whole team, the whole Union Creative outreach component of this. But you'd think during COVID and social distancing and all of that it would be so hard to have these, have public feedback, to have the steering committee meetings that we've had. And I think, I've actually, in some ways, the public outreach and the collaboration with the community has actually been better. Because we've been forced to think outside the box, and totally, all the credit goes to your team on this, Union Creative. But yeah, I think post-COVID, there's definitely a lot of things that we're going to take out of this and continue to do in terms of community collaboration.
And I love that you said that. I think that I was writing something the other day and somebody was using that whole return to normal. And for me, when I hear that, it's frustrating, because I don't want that exactly. Because I think we have learned so much during this time. And I think as much of that as we can integrate into things. I have been working from home. If I never returned to an office again, I would be fine personally. But even if I could just limit that time to the amount that I can get done in other ways, I am fully on board. Sarah, anything you'd like to contribute to that? You work with a lot of people.
Yes, but I think that's probably been the most exciting thing about the whole design process. Is it's just, you'll participate in a meeting where you hear this huge diversity of perspectives, or sometimes there'll be a point of conflict. And you'll think, oh my gosh, how are we ever going to resolve this in a way that works for everybody and it still all hangs together? And so just seeing how this design team has been able to respond to that, and instead of seeing that as a challenge, it's like every time one of those points of conflict or challenges come up, something even more exciting happens on the other side of that. And that's just been super fun to see that happen.
Can I build off that just quickly?
Of course.
I think that point of, building collaboration that has diverse enough perspectives that you're going to run into conflict is actually a really exciting place to be. And I often think about it as collaborating with the constraints of a project. And those constraints often evolve and change as the project goes on. But conflict is, I think, a really healthy part of a design process. And as we run into the challenges that a particular person on a team might bring up because they view from a totally different lens, right? The designers might think this is great. The finance person might look at it, or the zoning perspective person might look at it, whomever, right? And they say, that's not going to work. Then that variable now becomes a new collaborator on your team. And you now get to start thinking about that as a boundary you get to work within. And I think that's why it gets increasingly creative and the solutions get increasingly good as you move through a process, is because you're just continuing to kind of bump into these new constraints that become part of the team. And then within that, you can find these really exciting boundaries and exciting solutions that wouldn't be there if it was just, you know, an individual person sitting on the site looking for inspiration, right? You really need to be able to bump into each other. And I often think of this idea that, like, not all stakeholders in a process are humans, right? There's all sorts of other variables that we have to design with. And I think, you know, it's been fun with this project that Sasaki, I think you all approach it in a really similar way, that like these design constraints are really helpful and they're really healthy part of the process. And I know that's something that Chile and I talked about as we were working on teaming up with you. That's exciting to us, as we felt like, you know, whether it's budget or whether it's other weird cultural things in the community, or it's other variables, right? That those wouldn't be viewed as limitations, but rather those are like fuel to build a creative solution.
Building off of what Chile was saying about community outreach, I think COVID has actually made it better. This process that we've done and teamed with Union Creative and IO Landarch on, I think it's been like one of the best community engagement processes we've done, and most robust, I think most like interactive, and it's really going to serve us past COVID as, you know, what to do, best practices in community engagement. So that's been exciting. And it's really, I think, pushed us to think beyond what we typically do. And it's been, as I've said a million times already, a fantastic process.
I love it. Obviously, being part of Union Creative, I can vouch for this experience. It has been novel. It has been, you know, familiar. It has been super fun. I think that the feedback that we've gotten from the community is more and more exciting, you know, than anything that we've done before. Jake, we have made it to the portion of the show that we have kind of gotten to our section of this campaign as far as the outreach goes. What sort of leading our team, and we'll hear from Matt and his experience here in just a second. What were your thoughts coming into this, those initial conversations that you had, the limitations that we collectively had going into it with COVID, and then the response that we have coming out of it? Let's start talking about that.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously COVID put some interesting constraints on us, not just the obvious ones, right? Not just thinking about, well, we can't physically be together in the same ways, or it might be more difficult to connect with people in certain ways, but, you know, also just people's headspaces has been really different. This is something that I've noticed in all the projects we're working on, is that getting people to think big picture has been really challenging throughout this. People are, like, we're all kind of in fight or flight mode right now in these interesting ways. And I think people are settling through that, but especially as we were starting this process, things were still really intense. And I think, so getting people to step sort of back and beyond their immediate concerns and be able to think big picture about what they want to see in their community, I think that was one of the first hurdles to think about. But, you know, I think ultimately what we were able to do with this particular project is narrow in on this keyword of welcoming. And I think once we did that and we used that as the origin from which to build the whole campaign, I think things started coming together really nicely, right? We wanted, outside of COVID, not even considering COVID, we wanted this campaign, and most importantly, we wanted this plaza to feel welcoming to a broader part of our community than has ever felt welcome in this area, right? Like, we wanted everybody to be able to be connected and welcome to the space. And so using that as a starting point, I think allowed us to open up to some innovative ideas that don't necessarily come into traditional community engagement work. So I think it's really about, for us, we just shifted the why a little bit, and it's built into the work that we always do. But I think for this project, because we had to deal with those constraints of COVID, we were allowed to think a little bit more openly and find these innovative solutions and narrow in on that core idea of building a welcoming space, rather than, you know, kind of dealing with maybe some of the other things we might have had to deal with in certain normal circumstances.
Matt, you're part of sort of a little bit of a dream intern, you know, situation here. Talk a little bit about your experience. You know, what have you learned? What will you take with you? Congrats on the official new gig that I don't know if I knew about, so that's fantastic.
Absolutely no regrets. It's amazing to, well, it's a huge compliment to be asked by Jake to go and become part of his company, and so that's been amazing. The experience has been surreal. I think I came on board with Jake literally as everything was hitting the fan, and it's been interesting to go and see how we react and how the public reacts. And I think that what has been encouraging and one of the things that's been so fun about this opportunity and about this project is that it has created a lifeline for the community. I think that the situations that we've found ourselves in, the climate that we find ourselves in, a lot of people have put up a lot of walls, literally and figuratively, to go ahead and just feel safe in their space. But we all long for what was there before, right? We talk about the new normal. And this project has, I think, given a lifeline to the community to go ahead and see outside of those divisions and to go ahead and see outside of the place that we found ourselves in. And so it's been really, really exciting and a lot of fun to go ahead and engage. Like I can honestly say that when we sat down and did the welcoming committee or the welcome fest, that was the first time that I had spent in anybody's company other than my wife and my dogs in weeks, months maybe. And so, it was an incredible experience. I honestly can say that I had never seen a crowd so universally diverse and interesting at an Ogden gathering before. And so, just seeing that told me right away that we were heading in the right direction, and whatever we were doing it right and we were doing it well. So,
Matt, nicely said. I have a question for you, Cam. So collectively, what I love about this conversation is that we have all been in some shape or form involved with this project and the Nine Rails districts for many years. It goes back, a lot further for others, but it has been many years for all of us, right? And so, Cam, from some of those early conversations that you and I have had with Jake when we started getting more and more involved with these projects and things, you started to shape some ideas of what you would like to see in the district and then eventually into this plaza. How has the reality of the Sasaki designs really kind of lived up to some of those initial impressions that you had?
I think it's exceeded expectations. It's not, to be completely honest, I mean, the approach in my mind was always from a very high level, and just saying there's so much opportunity here, and it's not my skill set to impose design thought to this. That's going to be Sasaki's skill set at the table. So, I always wanted to try the best that I could with collaboration with Jake, Union Creative, and the city to just open up as many doors so that there were just options on the table, and the more options and more possibilities, and then we could sort of trim it back from there and then start building the parameters and understanding those parameters, either from the community's standpoint or the city's, the physical, the landscape of the site. So I think to see it in its current proposed stage, it's amazing, and I couldn't be more excited about it, really.
And so the conversation brings us. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have to pipe up there too, because I think the reason the project is exceeding all of our expectations, it's because of the incredible work the design team has done, but it's also because of the partners that are contributing to funding the plaza. This is something that would be probably a couple years down the road from even happening if it was just left to the city to fund. But we are just super lucky and grateful to have the Dr. Ezekiel R. and Ed Nawada Stumpke Foundation, which is making a major contribution to help us fund the plaza. Ogden Contemporary Arts also providing funding through a ramp grant for the plaza, and Weber State University. And I think that assortment of partners demonstrates the confidence that the community has and the impact that this project will have. And it's helping us push this project to a place where it is exceeding kind of what we had hoped it might be.
Sarah, I love that you read my notes without even seeing my notes. And so that was absolutely next is the big thank you. And I love that it came from you as well. And so this really does kind of take us to, we're getting closer to present day, right? And so at this point, we have, what was the percentage of our design at this point, Anna? How far along are we?
Well, I'll let Ashley, the project manager, know or answer that. She's very clear on the percentage.
Okay.
We're quickly approaching 60% documentation, so a little bit more than halfway through the design, and we're really getting down to fine-tuning details, which is really exciting. We'll be bringing that towards the advisory committee in the next couple of weeks and sharing what we've been updating. It's definitely changed. I would say a lot, but maybe a little bit from some other perspectives, from 30% design based on kind of new information that we've got, which again, it's making the design better. It's that point where you get new information and it makes it more exciting, richer. So we're excited as we're developing details. Anna and I were just talking about wanting to just sketch on this project. So we can't wait to unveil what we've been working on with you all.
I love it. And I do have a question for Jake next, where this is, let's call this our little oasis that we're creating, right? On the corner of 25th and Ogden Avenue there. This will be an incredibly inviting space, but this will be very new to Ogden, right? And so that inherently comes with, it's going to be challenging to some degree to the community. And so how have we started to bridge that? And then what are our next steps to make it so that this space is from day one continues to be welcoming to the public?
Yeah, I think that, as we've been trying to push boundaries with the design, which has been something we've been really interested in, we've always been making sure those are rooted back in things we've heard from the community, right? So we're not just trying to push boundaries for the sake of expressing our own creativity. We're trying to push boundaries to more deeply and more meaningfully meet the needs of the community in ways that folks may not have thought possible, right? So, we've really heard that the community wants a space that's fun and playful and colorful and is full of nature, and facilitates all kinds of great contemporary art, whether that's sculpture or dance or performance or a small acoustic set. And, so we're really thinking about how do we take those values and those concepts and push them as far as we can. So I would hope that while this space will feel new and unique, it will feel more Ogden than anything else has felt, right? That's kind of the goal, is that it feels new but comfortable at the same time. And I think there's also a very large portion of our community that has felt hungry for a lot of things for a long time. Like we travel or we visit other parts of other communities or even other parts of our own community, and we are hungry for things that we don't have. We feel that maybe there's gaps here that shouldn't be. And this design, I think, dovetails into some of those gaps in just such an elegant and beautiful way that will sort of feed that hunger, but still feel rooted in this kind of gritty town of Ogden that we have here.
I love it. What are our next steps for outreach?
So we've got a couple of virtual Q&A meetings coming up. Depending on when this airs, you either can catch us.
It was amazing or it's coming up.
It was either great or it's coming up, yeah.
Yes.
But we have a total of 6 more virtual Zoom meetings. Probably the best way to keep tabs on those is the website, which is ninerailsplaza.com. There's all kinds of information about this project there, including the opportunities to engage coming up. But we have a total of 6 more virtual Zoom question and answer sessions. 3 will be in English and 3 will be in Spanish. And those will be opportunities to see the design, to talk about what could happen at the design, at the plaza from a programming perspective. So just keep an eye on the website. I would say would be your best spot.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to kind of wrap things up a bit. Thank you so much for your time. Sarah having to sort of take off is a good reminder that we're probably at a good time here. But Lori, I maybe one of the last questions for you, and that is the importance of momentum in sort of the development of Ogden Arts and the Nine Rails Creative District. And as I see every grand and small and large project that we do, it gets us to the next one, right? To the next place. And so let's talk about that. And so the way these projects work, while we're in the middle of one, you're thinking of the next one. Like you're constantly sort of thinking what these next steps are. And so how important is the success of each project as we go?
It's extremely important. You got to think of it as a snowball rolling down the hill. Like as we drop off these little, new murals or public art pieces or this arts plaza, it's gaining more and more attention and causing people to put that in their mind. Like, oh, there's something happening in the creative district. How can I be a part of that? Like that momentum is extremely important for the organic growth of the arts scene and the creative district in Ogden. That's something that Sarah, who isn't here to chime in, but this is something that's been so important to us. We've been just, striving to make sure that this creative district and what happens in it is coming from the community. We didn't want to program or design at the community. We really were holding strong that it was more organic and that the community was driving what they wanted and kind of driving what is happening. And so this momentum will help drive the future organic nature and growth of what's happening. So, and this is like the piece that we needed, like that programmable space that's accessible to everyone, that any little a little poetry group can say, hey, we're going to have a poetry reading in the plaza, and it gives them a space to do their thing and get that literary type of art out into the community. And that's really, really the magical thing that we wanted. It's just the piece that is going to make this district, I think, start to really grow.
I love it. As we're sort of wrapping things up, is there anything amongst the group that you have been biting your tongue on? Anything else you'd like to say at this point? Excellent. We hit some good bases. I love it. Hopefully this will be the first of several get-togethers, if it's okay with everybody. I think we covered some really good ground. I think that I would love everybody to know that this project is in the community sphere as much as it is, right? It's one of the reasons we're doing these Q&A sessions. It's the reason why we put together the Welcome Fest. There's a lot of decisions that are being made that perhaps the listeners in the community may not be aware of, but there's so much of that information that is available to you. And the feedback is, it still continues to shape, Ashley's design at this point, right? I love that the additional information that you get, you take into account even at this point, Anna, and that it does affect all of those. And so thank you very much, Lori Buckley, Sarah Mace, Ashley Peltier, and of course, Cam McLeod, Jake McIntyre, Matt Killebrew, and Chile Larsen for hopefully our first of many conversations. I do appreciate your time. Have a wonderful night. Happy Halloween.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi,
Thank you so much, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to episode 24 of the Nine Rails Arts Podcast, produced by the Banyan Collective, arts and adventure podcasting since 2010. Don't miss an episode of the Banyan Collective's Nine Rails Arts Podcast as we explore what it means to be an adventurous creative. Hear the stories of Ogden's new Nine Rails Creative District, recorded from the Banyan Collective studio, located in the district's epicenter and home of artisans, designers, and creatives, the Monarch Building. Follow the Nine Rails Arts Podcast on Facebook and also on Instagram at the number 9 Rails. For more from the Banyan Collective, search the Banyan Collective on Apple's podcast app, Spotify, and YouTube. This week, we'll leave you with a little something from Van Sessions, Banyan Collective's live podcast music series recorded live during Ogden's First Friday Art Stroll from the Monarch Building in the heart of the Nine Rails Arts District. This is Ogden's own singer-songwriter Christian Scheller.
Well, thanks for being here tonight. Tell us about song number 2.
All right, this is the very first song I ever wrote. I think it's actually really relevant right now. This is called Self. It's kind of about showing some self-love, feeling yourself a little bit. Joy has no place when you're running around looking for things you know aren't there. Everyone can see you feel so lonely, trying to find a way to care. Come on, show yourself love. Come on, make it feel true. Everyone has their trouble. Everyone feels blue. Life is not meant to be lived in isolation, hiding away from it all. When is all you feel, you run away from everyone. Feel yourself starting to fall. Come on, show yourself love. Come on, make it feel true. Everyone has their trouble. Everyone feels blue. Spend your life fighting away the crazy amounts of pain. No matter where you find yourself, the tears, they still fall down like rain. Come on, show yourself love. Come on, make it feel true. Everyone has their trouble. Everyone feels blue.
Nice.
All right.
Nice.